How's it going? My name is Jim Kendall, and this is my question named Lightspeed Delivery. And it's a very long question. It's got a lot of information in it. It's broken up into two parts. So we're going to start with part one. So in part one, the question reads, Darth Vader runs a private business being a door-to-door magazine salesman. He only operates in one planetary system and wants to expand his business to an intergalactic level. To do this, he purchases an enormous space station, the size of a small moon, from which to run his operation. The market value of this station is $200,000, with a useful life of 10 years and a salvage value of $10,000. He is worried, however, about design flaws in the station that could cause it to be destroyed by his hostile magazine-selling competitors, so he decides to buy homeowners insurance. In the event of a catastrophic explosion, Empire Mutual will pay back 90% of the station's value at the time of the explosion, with the value being calculated using straight-line depreciation. Lucasfilm Insurance LLC will instead pay back the station's full value, but with the value being determined by double declining balance depreciation. Find the book value of the station in each year according to each firm. During what years would Empire Mutual pay Mr. Vader more money than Lucasfilm Insurance, and vice versa? So as we can see, there's a lot of information brought right to you, and it can be a little bit hard to keep it all under wraps. So what we're going to do first is organize the information. So the initial value of the space station is $200,000. The useful life is 10 years. So for Empire Mutual Insurance, they've offered 90% of the value of the current value of it whenever it is possibly destroyed, and that is calculated, the value, under straight line depreciation. For Lucasfilm Insurance LLC, they will pay back the full value of the space station if it is destroyed, with its value being calculated using double declining balance depreciation. So what we need to find is the book value in each year and what years favor each firm. So with that said, we have a lot of our values that we need to calculate these depreciation right off the bat. So we have initial value, I, of $200,000. We have the salvage, $10,000, and we have N, which is the amount of time, its useful life, which is 10 years. So using straight line depreciation, our formula is I minus S over N to find the yearly depreciation of the space station. So we know I, we know S, so that's not 200,000 minus 10,000, so that's 190,000 over 10, which is 19,000. So that is how much the space station will depreciate each year according to Empire Mutual. So from that, we find the first year, 200,000 minus that 19,000 brings us to $181,000. And that is the book value after the first year. The second year, we do the same thing. We take that $181,000, subtract $19,000 again, and we get $162,000. And we can keep doing this all the way to year 10, when we will finally reach our value of $10,000, which is our salvage. Now we also need to remember, though, that Empire Mutual is only going to pay us the 90% that it is worth. So when we take that into account, we take the book value and just take 90% of each of those book values, and we find what Empire Insurance or Empire Mutual will pay us in each year. So the first question in our problem, the book value of each year, we already have that. So this is the book value according to Empire. Now this is what they will pay us, but we need to remember that the actual answer that it asks us is what is the book value for this first part. So we have the book value right here. But we're going to use the 90% to compare to Lucasfilm Insurance to see which is going to pay us more. So now moving on, we have Lucasfilm, and we have the same variables. We have the initial value of 200,000, with salvage of 10,000, n equals 10, and then now we have alpha, which is whatever our multiplier is divided by the number of years. So our multiplier is 2 because it's double declining, and the number of years is 10. So 2 over 10 we get 0.2. Now we have our equation for the double declining depreciation, and that is alpha times the previous year is the depreciation of that year. So using this, we can find the first year, which is just 200,000 times 0.2, which is 40,000. Subtract that from 200,000, we get 160,000. Do that for the second year, we get 128,000. I mean, we can continue doing this all the way through the 10th year, where we do need to see that, for instance, in the 9th year, we calculate what the depreciation is, and then we get our book value in the 9th year. But even though if this wasn't the last year, of course, we would take that 20% of this and subtract it, and we'd find the book value of the 10th year. But since this is our last year, the book value is always going to be the salvage value, if that makes sense. So the book value in the 10th year is 10,000, even though that's not what we would have calculated if we had just continued our depreciation calculations. But with that said, we have our book values, and they will pay us 100% of the value in each of these years if there's an explosion. So we have our book value, and we have what Lucasfilm will pay us. So now we need to compare Lucasfilm to Empire Mutual. So we have, here's what Empire will pay us, and here's what Lucasfilm will pay us. So there's a lot of numbers, but we can see in the first year, Empire will pay us more by $2,900. Second year, they will pay us more by even more, and they will keep paying us more money. Here in the 8th year, they are still paying us more money. But in the 9th year, we see that Lucasfilm actually will pay us more than Empire. So somewhere between the 8th and 9th year, Lucasfilm values Empire more, like Lucasfilm values the space station more than Empire does. And we see that continue into the last year. And so in the last year, in both scenarios, it's worth the salvage value. Like that would be the book value of the space station. But Empire will only pay us 90% of that value, so they would only pay us 9,000, whereas Lucasfilm would pay us the full value, which is 10,000. Now it's important to remember, just back from the original problem, that Empire is only going to pay us 90%. It's actually, when I was writing the answer to this problem, I completely forgot that Empire was only paying 90%. It's very easy to miss little details like that, but it would give you the wrong answer. For instance, if you didn't have the 90%, Empire would still pay more in the 9th year. And I think in between the 9th and 10th year, Lucasfilm would have paid more, but it wouldn't have mattered because in the 10th year, they both would have paid the same. So you would have gotten the wrong answer if you didn't have that 90% in there. So it's just another example of where these little details, you have to be making sure that you're organizing your information and you're not forgetting minor details that could influence your answer in the problem. So we can see, actually, if we graph this, that Empire is paying us substantially more for most of the time that we are owning this space station. Right up until the 9th year, right before the 9th year, Lucasfilm edges out Empire. So, and then in the 10th year, of course, you can see that little amount that Lucasfilm is paying us more. So back to our original question, which was which years would Empire pay more than Lucasfilm, and vice versa. We have Empire is preferable for the first 8 years, but Lucasfilm Insurance LLC is preferable for years 9 and 10. Now on to part 2. This is a bit simpler, it's smaller, less information, but we still need to pay attention to these things. So the question reads, now that he has insurance, Darth Vader begins analyzing his company's finances. He finds that his fixed costs, comprised mostly of very expensive distribution ships, come to $8 million per period. Each magazine subscription costs Vader $8 and sells for $15.95. Find the break-even sales volume and the sales volume needed if Mr. Vader wants to have a $1,977,000 profit. So as we can see, there's a lot less, it's a lot less wordy than the last question, but we still need to organize the information. So the fixed cost we found is $800,000, and then it tells us the revenue per unit, which is how much it sells for, is $15.95, and then the cost that Vader pays for each one of them, which is the variable cost per unit, is $8. So what we need to find is the break-even sales volume, and we also need to find the volume if we want to make that amount of profit. So what we find is that contribution margin per unit, which is the amount of money that we get in profit per unit that we sell, is the revenue per unit, how much money it costs the consumer, minus how much it costs us, which is $8. So $15.95 minus $8 finds our contribution margin per unit is $7.95. Now, this contribution margin is what we're going to use to pay back the fixed cost. So what we need to do is find out how many contribution margins, or how many units, we need to sell to make up that $8 million. So we have our break-even volume, which is the fixed cost divided by that contribution margin, which $8 million divided by $7.95, we find it to be 1,006,290 subscriptions that we need to sell to make up our fixed cost. So now we move on to the second part, which is how much do we need to sell to make a profit of $1,977,000, which is essentially the same problem. It's just as if we had a fixed cost of instead $8 million, we just added this profit in, and that's how much we need to make. So same question, basically. We have $8 million plus this extra profit divided by $7.95, and that gives us an answer of 1,254,969 subscriptions that we would need to sell in order to make up our fixed cost and have that profit. So I like this question because, of course, it ties in questions from chapters 8 and 9. I think it's a great review question, and it's, again, I make a lot of these problems that are you have to organize your information. So it's the same with this. This is no exception. A lot of information, organize it, and then it doesn't end up being that hard. It was also another important topic was the fact that this graph, you can see that double declining balance really does decline much faster than straight line. And eventually, though, towards the end of the product's life, it really does come back to being even with straight line. So that another main topic that we talked about. But yeah, that's my problem. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. It was certainly helpful to me.